Breaking news from the Aldonzo and Dees show. We have obtained the top secret transmission of the missing F-35 fighter jet moments before the pilot ejected.
Hey, this is Captain Hoekstrut. I'm in autopilot right now, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this transponder off, and I'm going to have this sandwich my wife made me while it's on autopilot, and I'm just going to enjoy it. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, ground, I just dropped a tomato between my legs. I'm going to reach down and grab this real quick.
Coming at you from the Skyhammer Studios here on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. This is the Aldonzo and Dees show.
You have insanity in my earpiece.
I'm, of course, your co-host for the show, Aldonzo.
I'm Dees.
And we have to reference this thing in the beginning because there's a whole lot of something going on with this. This whole F-35, we want to get into that right off the bat in the first segment. Let's just address the elephant in the room. So in South Carolina, an F-35B jet disappeared for a couple days. This happened on Sunday, and it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The pilot was doing just a routine run. And so what we got so far from the United States Marine Corps, which this was a Marine thing. Of course, we got the Navy and the Air Force all have their planes, and the Marines have their own. I think the Army's the only one that really doesn't have any jets.
Yeah, the F-35B is basically just signifying that it is a Marine Corps version of the F-35.
Right. I think that's correct. I'll check that.
It
Anyway.
is.
Okay, I'm gonna take your word. I'm gonna take your word for it, Dees.
Mm-hmm.
You don't worry about it, bro. So anyway, here's the story thus far. He takes off. He's flying. This is outside Charleston?
Yeah, North Charleston, basically. Well, actually, he crashed in North Charleston.
Yeah, it was Williamsburg County is where he went down. Williamsburg County. So I did some, I heard this, and I'm like, okay, well, mishaps happen, which is what they called it. And then I got to thinking about this. Well, wait a minute. I started reading it, and something's not right here. So the pilot's flying. Everything's good. He's in autopilot. And then for some reason, he has to eject. Now, this is the beginning of the story. He ejects. He lands quasi-safely. Ejecting from a jet is not an easy thing to do. It's very hard on your body. It's very traumatic on you physically to eject from. So you think if you're going to eject from your aircraft, there's got to be something catastrophically wrong. Like there's no way you can land this thing, right, Dees?
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do with a $100 million jet.
80, but yeah.
Well, they're saying, no, I've heard anywhere from 80 to 110 million.
Either way, it's expensive.
And these people just aren't guys that get off the street and, hey, you want to fly a jet force? That's not how this works. They put a lot of time and effort not only into building these jets, but also the people that are flying them. So he just willy-nilly ejected is what the Marine Corps made it sound like. Am I correct?
That was kind of the impression I was left with when...
A mishap.
Yeah, like, what are you, accidentally tied his shoelace to the eject bar? And
well, that's a pretty damn big mishap.
Yeah.
So check this out. So something happens, and we don't know what at first. He ejects, and the transponder, and I'm not sure the inner workings of these planes, but I'm pretty sure if you have a, let's say, approaching $100 million jet, it shouldn't be like a little button over here where you just flip the transponder off. I mean, they should be tracking this thing, should they not?
I would think that if you're just doing exercises on your own soil, that you would have it on at all times.
I would think you'd have it on
maybe,
anyway.
This is a stealth fighter. So maybe that was part of the exercise. I don't know, but just general logic would tell me that, hey, if you're just, out on a little brief exercise, that you would have this on just in case something like this happened. And he wasn't alone. He had there was another jet that was with him.
Oh, why didn't the jet follow the other jet?
I don't know, but
lots of questions.
Yeah.
Lots of questions, folks. All right, so here's my thing about this, and we've got some other stories that are going to bleed into this that are going to get you thinking, like, what in the hell is really going on here? So anyway, he ejects. at the time, unknowingly, well, we don't know why, he ejects from the jet, and the jet continues on in autopilot, and they can't find the jet. So the United States Marine Corps pretty much put it on a milk carton, missing F-35. Has anybody seen it? That's pretty desperate. Like, you can't find your jet. Now, I'm thinking the whole time this is going on, well, somebody's going to find it. It's going to crash in somebody's house. So it crashes in Williamsburg, South Carolina, Williamsburg County, about 80 miles away from the Air Force Base. So it goes down, and nobody really notices it. I found one eyewitness that saw the plane flying overhead and didn't think much of it. Okay, the canopy's open. There's no pilot in there, but this person didn't think much of it. And then we're going to play audio from a gentleman named Randolph White, who actually heard it crash.
That man is a national treasure.
He's a national treasure, and we're going to hear from Randolph White here, hopefully in this segment, if not the next.
The eyewitness described it as being almost inverted as it flew over.
Well, there's nobody actually flying it, so nobody to do corrections.
Yeah, and that's the only, quote, eyewitness report that I've seen that somebody
you're seeing a stealth fighter jet 100 feet above the tree line, almost inverted, the canopy's open, and you just go, well, look at that, honey, there's a jet. That doesn't sound right to me. But the fact that nobody saw this thing, so these things have about 2,000 miles, from what I've read, worth of fuel in them. All right? So the fact that he made it 80 miles away, supposedly, allegedly, from where he bailed out, and it crashed and there wasn't a big fireball and nobody's running. I mean, this isn't a desolate part of South Carolina. I mean, I looked it up on Google Maps or on Google Earth. It's not like you're out in the middle of Wyoming somewhere. I mean, this had to have been seen and heard. So I had some skepticism over that. So allegedly, they found the plane. Now, what really gets me, and before we get into the meat and potatoes and why I think this happened, we have to start with this. The pilot said he ejected due to bad weather.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm going to tell you something. The weather in South Carolina was fine that day. And even then, I mean, here, I'm going to play something. This reminds me of this scene from a movie. Guess it if you can.
Now, how do you think, son? I keep playing. I don't think the heavy stuff's going to come down for quite a while.
I mean, don't you think if you're in a $100 million jet, you could just keep going? Especially when the sun's shining and there's no wind. And people are questioning this. Like, what the hell's going on? There was nothing wrong with that jet. So when you think about it, he's in a perfectly fine jet. Okay? He's on autopilot. The transponder's off. He's flying fine, supposedly, and then he just ejects. Something is not right here. And then they ordered a 2-day stand down. They grounded all the planes for 2 days. Now, normally somebody would go, well, you know, we don't know what happened. That's normal. Now, wait a minute. They had to have been in communication with the pilot, right?
You would assume so.
If they weren't, what the hell's going on? If he couldn't contact them and he had to eject, something nefarious to me is at foot here.
Well, not only that, but back to the whole weather thing. This is an F-35, which is the most technologically advanced
yep.
Fighter jet in the world. Okay? And what that means is they're not taking guys right out of the academy and throwing them in these jets. These are pilots that have probably been in, I would venture to guess, at least 10 years, if not more.
They probably flew Harriers, F-16s.
Yes,
yeah.
and they have flown through, quote, bad weather. Even, let's just pretend for a second that he flew through a pop-up cell, you know, a storm cell. With this jet, I still can't imagine it being grounds for ejection unless, like, it got hit by lightning or it took catastrophic damage from hail. I don't know. But like I said, I haven't seen any reports that state that there was any significant weather in South Carolina that day, which makes it all the more bizarre.
So here's something else for you to chew on. We're going to come up on a hard break here, but I want to throw this out at you. So Popular Mechanics, all the way back to 2017, was doing stories on the F-35, and its biggest vulnerability is the ability to be hacked. Okay? This is going back a couple years. They said that that can be done. They can hack into that plane and somewhat control it. Now, Iran did that with a drone, I think 2 years ago, and landed it in Iran, an American drone, and them in China cloned it. Also, China got found out stealing top secret information on these F-35s. I think it was back in 2014 or 2015. So you got to think about this. What's the reason he bailed? What's the reason they grounded all the jets? And not just the jets that were on the ground or flying for training. Even the ones that are stationed over in China that are flying missions, they grounded those as well.
Interesting.
Something's very up here. Anyway, we're going to get more into it when we come back from these commercials. And we were talking about this F-35 jet that supposedly went missing. Excuse me, as Deez like to call it.
Allegedly.
Likes to call it allegedly. So let's do this timeline real quick on this again, if you're just tuning in. So on Sunday around 2 p.m. in South Carolina, outside Charleston, an F-35 is taking a leisurely stroll on a Sunday afternoon. Leisurely flight, whatever you want to call it. Transponder's off. It's an autopilot. For no apparent reason at the time, the pilot ejects, leaves a perfectly good jet to run for 80 more miles till it crashes in Williamsburg County. Now we just found out that he said it was weather to blame. He had to bail because of the weather, but the weather was good in South Carolina that day. We can't figure this out. They say they found a debris field. I'm thinking BS. They didn't find a debris field. Nobody, you'd think there'd be eyewitnesses, right?
There was a picture, an aerial picture of the crash site that it was a still image, and I mean, it just looked like a crater.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that. But I find it very, very far-fetched that this happened. And then we start talking about China has stolen top-secret information on the F-22s and the F-35s. Now, the big thing behind this is the F-35 is the most advanced aircraft, stealth fighter, I think, ever built or ever known of. Let's put it that way, ever known of publicly, which is what, when we get into the next war with China, what we're going to be fighting our wars with. Okay, and Russia as well. And it's also, per a lot of reports, former Marine Corps personnel and popular mechanics and researchers said these things can be hacked into. And when somebody goes, oh, it's impossible, they're never going to hack into that, they'd have to be here and do this. Let me tell you something. It's almost like make it idiot-proof and they'll build a better idiot. If you make it unhackable, they'll find somebody and get the technology they can hack it. That's why I lean towards this wasn't just a mishap.
If it's ran by computers, it can be hacked.
And the F-35 is almost 100% run by computers.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, I'm not saying that happened, but you tell me what else it could have been. Why did they have the 2-day stand down where they grounded all the jets in the Marine Corps? All of them. Even if they're flying missions, bring them down, ground them for 2 days. Now, I get it if they want to have a stand down. Something is up here with this. And nobody can convince me otherwise. This plane just took off, and he bailed for no reason. Now, he said it was the weather. I don't believe that. Now,
just the fact that it's now, again, pre-recorded, it's now Thursday, and we still have nothing more than mishap. You know,
correct.
Give us something. You don't have to go into complete details, but, you know, tell us it was some kind of catastrophic failure, some kind of lightning strike, whatever. Give us something other than, oh, it was a mishap.
So,
okay.
This is a big deal right now, and I'm going to tell you guys why this is a big deal and what I've tied together with this. Okay? Let me refresh this real quick. You know how that goes, don't you, Deez?
Mm-hmm.
So, Gordon Chang. Okay, you familiar with Gordon Chang? We've talked about him a little bit.
I'm familiar with his cousin PF and his delicious meals.
Yeah, PF Chang, yeah. So, Gordon Chang is convinced that we will be at war with China. Okay? At nuclear war at that. He is convinced of it. A lot of people are at this point because China's ramping up for Taiwan. Now, let me pull this up too. Journalist named Zuri Linetsky flew with the United States Marine Corps over Australia, and they had, I think it was a dozen F-35s, and they're doing this back in July, preparing for it to get hot between Taiwan and China, because we know China wants to invade them. China just sent 150 jets, 150 aircraft, not just to Taiwan, but actually flew in Taiwan's airspace. Of course, China wants to, do the reunification thing with Taiwan. It's getting hot right now. And I've also got a theory on why we are involved with the war in Ukraine and how that ties into this, and we'll get into that later. So there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of reasons they would want to try to hack our aircraft. I mean, think about that. What if we get in a hot war with them? Bongino actually said this. He says, what if we get in a hot war with them and everybody in these F-35s, all these pilots, just get ejected? I mean, the battle's pretty much over at that point, isn't it, Deez?
Yeah.
There's so many things that can go on here. I'm not buying as tight-lipped as they are the 2-day standoff where they grounded all the aircraft. Now, and the other thing that got me, too, for a couple days, there was no eyewitness accounts. Don't you think there'd be a damn eyewitness account of this plane in Williamsburg County, South Carolina?
Something.
Okay, well, we finally got one. We talked about that in the last segment, where this family was having to get together or something, maybe a birthday party, and they saw the plane and it looked inverted. Okay, yeah, maybe. But the first one was this guy named, what was his name? Randolph White?
Randolph White, yes. A South Carolina man went viral for a wild interview with the local news station after he heard a presumed F-35 jet crash outside of his home while he was taking a shave. That's an interesting.
And you're going to hear that. I've never heard that before.
But didn't call anyone because he didn't know what it was. This is a guy who retired from his paper mill job about 10 years ago, lives in a house with his wife in a very rural area of Williamsburg County. And just roll the clip because this defies explanation.
So this is Randolph White, okay? Here we go, roll clip.
In the bathroom taking a shave, and I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this?
Sounds like James Brown.
And I heard a boom. Then my whole house shook.
White says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
The first thought came to me, I said, what's it, a meteorite coming out of space or something? And I said, well, if the airplane, it needed to be reported, but the thing was flying just too low.
The F-35B airplane wreckage created an extensive...
Hey,
you know...
I got an idea.
Yeah?
Yeah. Hit the music.
All right, cue it up. Here it goes.
And I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. And I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. I said, what in the world is this?
It's too good. That's too good right there.
Yeah, release that right now. It's the #1 hit.
So until the actual eyewitnesses came out, which it could be paid off by the government, I thought that this guy may just be crazy, maybe wanting to get his 15 minutes of fame. But even if that's what it is, that was well worth it, was it not?
Oh, without a question.
Now, one of the conspiracy theories, which I don't buy because I don't buy that you could get an F-35 that far without it being known, the military would intercept it, was that it was hacked by China or another adversary, and it was flown to Cuba. Did you hear about that?
I did see something on Twitter about that, and that was quickly debunked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any way they did it. I believe it crashed at this point. When the United States Marine Corps comes out, you know, they get done eating their crayons, and I'm just joking. I got friends that are Marines. I'm sorry. It's a joke. Don't get it. But when the United States Marine Corps comes out and says, yeah, we lost this plane. Can you guys kind of help us find it? I don't know. It's just...
Although, to play devil's
desperation.
advocate here, if there's no transponder, no way to track it, and the only image that I personally have seen them show is a somewhat fuzzy, basically just a crater just in a clearing in some a pretty heavily wooded area. And in the still image, you can't really make out any plane parts. So if you wanted to really dive into the rabbit hole, you could say that, look, somebody flew that thing remotely to Cuba or wherever the hell it was, and that this is all just a big cover-up.
Well, you know what? And
Not saying that's what happened, but
anything's possible.
Yeah. Talking about a stealth fighter with no way to track it.
Can you believe anything that the government tells you anymore?
No.
Now, here's the big part of this segment that I want to get to. This ties into it. The war in Ukraine. We're trying to figure out why we're fighting Russia, but we're getting all this stuff from China, but we're almost in war with China. Did you ever think, okay, and I've got stuff to back this up.
I tried it once in 1998.
I know it hurt you. You hurt, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. China desperately wanted Joe Biden to be elected president. They could not do anything with Trump. Just like Russia could not pull this off with Trump in office. It wasn't going to happen. Joe Biden's bought for, paid for, all this stuff. We know this with Joe Biden. He's compromised. Who knows what he's going to do if there's a war, if they launch a nuke. But, food for thought. Do you think, especially seeing Russia and China's relationship now, that there's any way that China maybe helped and pushed Russia into this to wear us down financially and militarily so that they could ultimately strike? Maybe this isn't a war of attrition against Ukraine. Maybe this is a war of attrition against us because militarily we're crippled right now. And now they're gearing up. And now they're gearing up to go into Taiwan. You know, and when I say we, I don't mean you and me and the people listening.
Right.
When I say we, I mean we as a country. We as our congressmen. Maybe we got hoodwinked on this. This is the perfect opportunity now for China to do this. And China's going to have to make a move before the next election. If there is an election. I'm not saying there will be. And that's another thing we got to get into. The numbers, the poll numbers. Trump and Biden are pretty well tied. We're coming down to 0 hour here.
I've seen two polls. Both of them are, one says virtual tie / Trump, and another one says that Biden is got a slight edge. But again, you know.
I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. All roads lead to China this day and age. Every single one of them leads to China. When you've got a compromised, and I say compromised, but he's also cognitively disabled president who's owned by that country, the Chi-Coms, how can you not go back and wait a minute? What makes sense here? Why is this going on? We'll get into more of that when we return from this break on the El Donzo and D Show on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So we were talking about this. So do you see how this goes? We talk about this F-35 that just flies itself. And then we go into the Ukraine-Russian war. And then we go into China invading Taiwan. And then we go into the election. All this stuff is tied together, in my opinion. Everything's happening for a reason. The Chi-Coms aren't stupid. Russia's not stupid. We on the other hand, are stupid. And I just got to get this out of the way right now. We are fat, lazy, stupid, drunk, stoned, ignorant people in this country at this point.
I feel personally attacked.
No, you know I would. Now Deez always says stuff like that, and Deez knows I'm not aiming at him with that. I mean, I'm not fat, I'm not stupid, but I am drunk half the time. But no, I mean that. I just look around at America, and nobody gives a damn in America anymore. Nobody wants to look at this stuff. You have to look at this. You have to get involved with it. Now, one thing we've talked about is this election coming up. Trump. All right, check this out. Trump, a guy that's been indicted how many times? What, 4 times?
Mm-hmm.
4 indictments. Okay. He's been raked over the coals. He's got 53% support right now among independents in the latest polls. 53%.
For now.
For now, but I'm saying that's pretty damn good. If you
Yeah.
look at where he was at in 2016 with him and Hillary Clinton, there was like a 20-point spread there, and he came in and swept her right off her feet. Well, I don't know if that's correct terminology. And then you go back, to when he supposedly, I got my air quotes up, lost to Joe Biden back in 2020. He was only like a point or 2 under Joe Biden in the polls. This is a big thing. If a legitimate vote was to be held today, Donald Trump would win. I mean, he's still smoking all the other candidates. He's smoking DeSantis, which is a fart in the wind at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Vivek Ramaswamy, Mike Pence. Mike who? Who the hell's Mike Pence at this point? He's leading it.
Yeah,
Now,
I haven't heard much lately out of either Pence or Christie or any of the other. Like, it's all pretty much Trump, DeSantis, and Ramaswamy.
and this is my point of why. So a lot of experts, a lot of military experts, a lot of government people believe that we would be in war with China by 2030. Okay? I think it's going to happen a lot faster than that. And everybody better start getting prepared. Get your head screwed on straight for this. All right? Because China is going to have to make a move to get Taiwan before there's any chance of Trump getting in there. Now, let me pull this story up real quick. Let me pull this, because I want to talk about conventional wisdom. Do you know what?
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Excuse me while I whip this out. Now, you know what conventional wisdom is, Deez?
I think so.
Conventional wisdom is because it's always been that way, or everybody's always thought this way, then this is the way it has to be. Give me an example. Okay? If you work somewhere and you go up to one of the workers and you see him doing something, you say, why do you do it this way? And they go, well, that's the way we always do it. That's just the way you do it. Well, that's not a reason for doing it. You could have been doing it wrong the whole time. Conventional wisdom is groupthink. Conventional wisdom is being a sheep. This is how you are supposed to think. Okay? This is the correct wisdom. Do as we say, not as we do. That's my summary of conventional wisdom.
Fair enough.
So, looking at the polls, they're pretty much tied in a dead heat. And a lot of these polls, Trump's actually leading in by 1 or 2 points, which is backfiring on the Dems. It's got to be, because they're in panic mode right now. They're actually, the lamestream media is actually starting to report on a lot of this stuff, how bad Joe's doing. And we've got some sound bites of old Joe and what he's been up to lately. We're going to get to and get kind of in the funny part of it. But this is conventional wisdom for you. Now, do you know who Governor Sununu is?
I've heard the name.
Okay, so Governor Sununu, claims that Trump's mugshot will turn off independence. So here's a story for you. We're going to go to MSNBC. This is MSNBC peddling this stuff. I'm going to read the story for you. 4 indictments later, Donald Trump is not only the first former president to face criminal charges, but he's now made history again with a mugshot released this week by the Fulton County Jail. This was in August, mind you. Among likely Republican caucus goers in Iowa, Trump's lead only grew after his most recent indictment, according to the first 2024 NBC News Des Moines Register Mediacom poll released this week. Now, in an interview airing Sunday, this is in August, on Inside with Jen Psaki. Did it say Inside Jen Psaki? What did that? No, that was that video on.
Easy.
Oh, no, I gotta stop. Airing Sunday on Inside with Jen Psaki. New Hampshire's Republican Governor Chris Sununu tells us he believes the mugshot doesn't change anything with Trump's base. It allows him to maintain his presence in the media, his image. Sununu argues that Trump's mugshot will, however, turn off independent voters. End quote. Independents hate it. There's no way Donald Trump will win anything above 31% of independents, which is why Republicans as a whole will get crushed if he's on the ticket. Well, he's at 53% right now. Now, do I trust polls to the, furthest extent? Of course I don't. But that is conventional wisdom. That is saying that, look, he's got a mugshot, he looks bad, he's going to turn people off. How about the people that can't afford to buy groceries right now? How about the people that actually know that we're staring at World War III? How about the people that know that Joe Biden's compromised? How about the people that, when they see this happen with Joe Biden, they see all the bribery schemes, they see his family taking in money, they see him lying, they see him cognitively decline. What about those people? This is literally one of these things where they got cocky again. Just like they did in 2016. They got cocky. They said it'll never happen, and it happened. And now look at them. They are flipping sticks right now. And I think even Ted Cruz believes that they're going to bring in Michelle Obama as a dead ringer to pull this out. But I don't think that's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. I think people are tired of this. I think there's a lot of people that were hesitant about Donald Trump. They're going to say, hell with it. I don't care what he tweets. I don't care what he says. I'm voting for him. Life was a lot easier back then. Now, there's something else I want to get to with this. Let me see if I can pull this up. Deez, did you have anything to interject while I'm doing this?
No.
Okay.
Sure didn't.
So see, here's my issue with this. So one of these things, I'm going to pull this up real quick for you because I want everybody to get a load of this. Vladimir Zelensky. All right. My issue with Vladimir Zelensky, and I've said this time and time again, is Vladimir Zelensky wants World War III. Because if you think about it, the only way that Ukraine is going to survive this invasion from Russia, we're up to 150, how much? $1 billion?
Yes.
150 into Ukraine right now. If we were not helping Ukraine, they would be gone. They'd be all Russia right now. They would be. There's no denying it, folks. You can't take your mind off this.
No, and I believe it just came out today that if there is a government shutdown, which is in the works right now, that they have made an agreement that's not going to stop, that the aid to Ukraine will not be affected by a government shutdown.
Of course it's not, because this is all part of the plan. The government, you know what? Shut the government down. We need to get the stuff in there. We need to get the border funding. We need to get this stuff in there as soon as we can get it in there. We cannot be pandering anymore. So shut the border down. You know how many layoffs I've been through? The company didn't have the money. We couldn't agree how to do it. They laid everybody off. You go get laid off. You come back to work when you come back to work. Shut the government down. You know, because it comes down to this. Well, we can't shut the government down because we can't fund the military. And then the Democrats go, well, if you shut the military people aren't getting paid because of the Republicans. And the Republicans go, well, the Democrats, well, look, somebody's going to have to take responsibility for it. Somebody's going to have to fold. That's why we have a constitutional republic. All right? Is so we can get together and somebody's got to give up something at some point. Now, I'm getting really pissed off about somebody has to give something up at some point. I'm getting really tired that we're usually the ones that do it. Let's make them sweat a little bit. The longest government shutdown I think in recent history was when Trump did it back in, 2019?
I believe so.
Yeah. The longest government shutdown we had. Now, Trump, you could say he caved a little bit. He didn't get the wall, but he got the fence and all this other, but he got more than anybody else ever did. He at least held out. So I want to bring this up real quick. Let me find this. Zelensky said this. Zelensky told Trump to release a supposed Ukraine peace plan so he can publicly share his idea now. Now, there's an issue with this. So Trump has a peace plan for Ukraine and Russia. He says it can be done in 24 hours, and people are laughing at him. Now, remember how many times they've laughed at Donald Trump? Like when he went over there and told Germany they're making a big mistake by relying on Russian beer, and they all laughed. Stupid Trump. I'm going to tell you something. This guy's got cards up his sleeve. He's the cleanest president we've ever had. He thinks everything out. He may not be articulate sometimes, but he's got his sticks wired tight. So, Zelensky wants him to come lay it out and do one or two things. And look, I want to say this right now. I feel very bad for the Ukrainian people. I do. I mean, what they're going through has got to be hell. I feel very bad for them. But on the other hand, I think you and I agree. And I never used to think like this. We cannot be the world's police force anymore.
I've thought like this for a very, very long time.
Yes, and I've recently started thinking like that. Well, I'd say recently, past probably 5-10 years. You know, you just get to a point, it's like, no, wait a minute. Let's stop. We can't be doing this sticks anymore. You know, I actually said sticks in lieu of the actual word. I've been doing that lately because they stick so often on this show. Like, that's a bunch of bull sticks. You know what I mean? Anyway.
They'll never get me.
I'll never get you. El Donzo always gets his man. So anyway, I want to get back to this. We were talking about this in the last segment, and we've only got probably about 7.5 minutes left on this one before we go to hour 2 of the El Donzo and D show. This is New York Post story, but this is, like I said, it's not their story, but this is the one I'm reading. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky urged former President Donald Trump on Tuesday to release details of an apparent plan that the 2024 Republican presidential frontrunner claims would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. So, this is his quote. This is Vladimir Zelensky. Quote, he can publicly share his idea now, not waste time, not to lose people, and say, my formula is to stop the war and stop all this tragedy and stop Russian aggression, he told CNN's Wolf Blitzer. And he said how he sees it, how to push Russia from our land, otherwise he's not presenting the global idea of peace. So, saying, hey, you say you got this idea, why don't you let everybody know about it? There's 2 issues with that. Now, the first issue with this that I take umbrage with is why, if Donald Trump has this grand master plan, it's not a grand master flash, didn't it? grand master plan. If he has this master plan of how he's going to end the war and get these 2 guys to stop this, why in the hell is he going to come out publicly and tell Joe Biden how to get it done? Why is he going to tell Vladimir Zelensky? Why is he going to project this any further than he actually has to, Dees? Why would he do that?
I mean, it's like asking the colonel to tell you his 11 herbs and spices before you buy the chicken.
Oh, I agree 100%. Look, Donald Trump has to get reelected before he does anything. And no, he shouldn't be telling these losers what the hell he's got going on. Now, the second part of this, I said there was 2 things, did I not?
I believe that's what you said, yes.
There's something, and look, I'm going to launch into this, and it's never really been successfully tried. They tried doing it to John Kerry, I think, when he went over to Iran. It's never been successfully tried and prosecuted. But I'm going to tell you something. If they'll try it with anybody, it'll be Donald Trump. It's a little thing called the Logan Act. Okay? Now, the Logan Act, to give you some preface into this, was enacted on January 30th, 1799, and it criminalizes negotiations by unauthorized American citizens with foreign governments having a dispute with the United States, which would be, i.e., Russia and Ukraine. Now, Ukraine's not in dispute, but Russia is. So pretty much what it says, any citizen of the United States, wherever he may be, who, without authority of the United States, directly or indirectly commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse, with any foreign government official or any other officer or agent thereof, with intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government, or of any officer or agent thereof, in relation to any disputes or controversies with the United States, or to defeat the measure of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. So when we talk about, when Vladimir Zelensky comes out, well, tell us what your plan is. Well, first of all, Donald Trump's not going to go over there and negotiate for him, is he?
I doubt it.
That would fall under the Logan Act, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
And why is Donald Trump going to lay his cards out on the table to show everybody his woohoo? This is where it is. Trump went over and actually met with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Actually met with him. Brought that round little snot to the table.
After they had traded insults back and forth, he called him,
little rocket man,
little rocket man. Yeah,
with China. So anyway, I mean, it's just one of these things to where, how arrogant are you? Especially Zelensky. Zelensky has to do this. He has to get NATO involved. The only way he'll survive, and I started going into this earlier, the only way Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine survives is to get NATO in the war. Why do you think he's saying all the things that he's saying about, Putin is going to, nuclear this and nuclear that, and he's going to invade Poland? Vladimir Putin's not going to invade Poland after this. He's wanted Ukraine and to put the band back together for a long time, specifically Ukraine, because that is the motherland of Russia. Vladimir Zelensky needs NATO to be involved. That's the only way Ukraine survives, unless we can do a peace deal. And I'm sorry, Deez, at this point, I don't care if a peace deal means giving away the Donbass region. I don't care. Give it to them. They're mostly...
Why would I care?
At least half of them.
Yeah.
At least half of them want to be Russia anyway. Now, people go, well, that's bad, Aldonza, because you do this and this, well, you can't give anything up. Well, look, then your whole country is going to be destroyed. And here's the other thing to this. Even if they say, well, if you give up a little bit now, in 5 or 10 years he comes back. Well, we got 5 or 10 years to rebuild our military, don't we? Because we're going to damn well need it. Because we're getting into this hot thing with China right now. We're on multiple fronts. We have Iran. We have China. And Iran. So we have Iran. We have China. We have Russia. We have North Korea. China is infiltrating South America. The reason they came up with the idea that they flew the F-35 to Cuba is because now China is setting up a military presence in Cuba. Something's going to have to give here. We can't keep the sticks up.
Oh, something's going to give.
Something's going to give really quick. And whenever you got these fighter jets and Russia's intercepting, United States jets and vice versa in China, this is going to get bad. Somebody's going to do something, and it's going to trigger something. I guarantee it, and it's going to come very soon.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
I hope we make it to the 2024 election, and I hope Trump gets in there and kicks ass and takes names. This is the Aldonzo and D Show on Cities 92.9, and baby, when you catch us again, you'll catch us for the second hour. We'll be right back after